Hey guys, how's it going? Kriparian here. Today I want to give you guys my analysis of the constructed meta in Hearthstone and what I think they should nerf and how they should nerf it. Now, in all reality, the complaints have not peaked on Reddit yet for how the meta is going, but us streamers that do play the game, 4 to 6 hours every single day, we have a pretty good idea about the perils that most people will soon experience. So I thought today I'd give you guys my meta/balance changes analysis of constructed. I have played largely constructed this month, and I have played a lot, and I've played against a whole lot of the meta decks. So it's possible that the balance changes this time around might come a little bit earlier because it seems like Hearthstone's dev team is trying a few fresh ideas, and that might be a very interesting thing. But in all reality, we probably won't see any kind of balance changes for several weeks to come. So don't be too impatient on that front because it might realistically take a while. Now, one thing that I have noticed dominantly in the meta right now, there are a couple of cards that are being played in just about every single deck. They're just super common, so I think those need to be a little bit adjusted just because they're neutral cards, and you generally want neutral cards to be on a lower power level than class cards, so when you play against a different class, you actually have a different experience when you're playing the game. Right? Pretty simple. That's right. So there's a lot of neutral cards that I think need some taking a look at, and a lot of cards right now are being played from prior expansions, probably more so than Blizzard is happy with. Also, Blizzard seems to try to push the combo aspect of the game a lot more in the last few expansions, and the aggro themes a lot less in the recent few expansions, and we don't really have that come to fruition yet because the old cards from old expansions, largely neutrals, are just taking over the game with tempo and aggressive decks. So it seems like the meta that we have is not exactly the one that Blizzard wants us to enjoy. So that's why I think some balance changes are coming, and this is my list here. So number 1 is Fungal Mancer. Fungal Mancer is the second most played card in the entire game right now. The most played will be the next on my list, so don't be patient here, okay? Fungal Mancer is extremely highly played. It's played in just about every single aggressive deck. It's played in every Keleseth-based deck, and it's played in every single Zoo deck. It's played in every single odd tempo deck. It's just really, really, really good. So, it's a neutral card, it's a low rarity card, and it's not fun to play against because it's a win more card. There's nothing great about this card, honestly. This card is just really crappy to play against, and it's played so much. So I think it really should be nerfed, and I think the way that Blizzard has nerfed things lately, the most realistic nerf for this card is making it cost 6 mana. At 6 mana, it might still see some play, but not a whole lot. And, more importantly, it will be out of the odd Baku decks. The Baku decks will basically have a bit of a downturn because this card will be excluded from those decks. Now, those decks are certainly not going to be dead, but if they're a little bit less powerful, then, some of the control decks might be more popular, some of the combo decks might be a bit more popular, and the meta would overall be a bit healthier, I think. Giggling Inventor is the most played card in the whole game, and yes, it is a card from this expansion, but it's a very annoying card, as it turns out, to play against or to play with. It's just not a lot of fun. There's a lot of crazy counter cards that people are running just to get rid of this card off the board, but it's played in most control decks and most aggro decks. And is neutral, and it's, not that rare. Well, okay, it's from this expansion, so it has that going for it, and if this card didn't exist, the whole expansion, whole Boomsday expansion would see a lot less play compared to the others. Just this card puts Boomsday over the top, and Boomsday does get its fair share of play, but it's mostly Giggling Inventor that gets its fair share of play, as it turns out. I think, once again, a mana nerf is suitable for this card. A mana nerf will make it so it's not so much of an appropriate aggro card, but it is still quite an appropriate control card. And again, it's not going to be a big deal if aggro decks can't play Giggling Inventor, but just notching those win rates down by like a fraction of a percent will give people more incentive to play a wider range of decks. There's so many tier 2 decks right now, and they're all getting pressed down by a few oppressive aggro-based tier 1 decks, largely including the 2 cards I just mentioned. So nerf them all by 1 mana, fairly sensible, I think. The next card I want to talk about is Juicy Psych Melon. Now, if you've played Standard, you may never have heard of this card. Obviously, when this card was revealed, people lost their minds, and that's understandable, but it's largely because of the Wild environment. So, in Wild, Druid is crazy. According to Hearthstone Replay, these are the 5 most played cards in Wild. For all classes. Yes, they're Druid cards. Now, Juicy Psych Melon is, it's up there still. More importantly, Juicy Psych Melon has a crazy played win rate. It's just insane. This card is totally crazy busted in the Wild format. And what's the point of that? You have a card that breaks the Wild game, is not played in Standard, and further restricts design space of future expansions that could then break this card to Wild levels. Why don't we just nerf the card, right? I feel it's not really a big deal to nerf this card other than the fact that Blizzard will have to give full dust refund on an epic rarity card, which Blizzard might not be too willing to do, but I think a mana nerf is in fact in order for this card as well, and probably more savage than just another 1 mana. I think Juicy Psych Melon is a fair Wild card at 6 mana, and if they have it at 6 mana, they can actually make cards that cost 9 mana and 8 mana and whatever that are combo based cards for Druid, and it won't necessarily break the game. So it opens up design space for the next few expansions, and that's certainly a very good thing in my opinion. One card that has crept back. So, if we have all the changes that I proposed right now, what we're going to have is Death Rattle Hunter and Death Rattle Rogue at the very top of the meta, and crap like Cube Lock's going to come back. So that's why this card is on the list. I think Cube is unjustifiably strong as Blizzard constantly releases new and powerful Death Rattle mechanics. And I think Cube is kind of like, let's just settle down, guys. You Death Rattle bros, just chill out for a little bit, okay? I think Cube is the source of a lot of these problems, and I think Cube can get an elegant nerf by just reducing its attack. So the combo basis of Cube would still be entirely there, but it would just be a little bit worse because when you don't get the combo plus Cube combo pieces, and you just Cube one Death Rattle thing, and you try to push on the board with Cube, if you lower its attack, that won't work very well anymore. So I think Cube should actually be nerfed to like a 2/6 type of minion, so that when they don't have a full combo, obviously Blizzard likes variance, Blizzard likes crazy combos when they happen and stuff, so I get that. And that won't be affected with a Cube. If you have Cube something, trigger the Cube, kill the Cube, pop, bam, bam, whatever, Death Rattle, super synergy, sweet, that's still going to happen. But if it's a 2/6 Cube and you don't draw that well, you're not going to continue to hard counter things like Control Warrior, okay? If Cube is a 2/6, the control decks can just leave it on the board for 3, 4, 5 turns if they have to, and stall their board clear. So it just makes those decks a little bit worse, which kind of is in line with some of the other proposed nerfs that I had. And I also think they should take a look at Baku. So Baku right now, it's seeing so much play in Wild and Standard. It's just crazy to get a super synergy hero power. And, once upon a time I proposed that they nerf some of these individual hero powers, but that's not a very intuitive nerf. Someone who comes back and plays the game 6 months from now doesn't realize that's been nerfed is going to have a pretty disappointing experience. And, while I don't give a shit about that, screw Baku decks, Blizzard seems to care about that train of thought. So I don't think it's realistic that Baku's, specific hero powers would be nerfed. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think Blizzard is going to do that. But one thing that Blizzard might do is make it so when Baku is drawn, it just sucks more. So right now, Baku's not that bad because most of the decks playing them are very aggressive decks. So when you're just winning the whole game, and you draw Baku, which is normally a bad statted card, it's just that extra bomb at the end, you know, so it actually is pretty decent. Like when you're playing Odd Rogue and you're in top deck mode and you actually get Baku, even though it's a terrible 9-drop, it's actually great as a standalone single card draw for the turn. And you have to look at it that way. And I think, again, if they just nerf the stats of Baku, it'll just make Baku decks just a little bit weaker, which is what we can expect Blizzard to do. We can't expect them to just obliterate the card out of orbit, as much as I would love that, and I would personally love to do that if I could. That's not realistic. I think realistically, if they're going to nerf Baku, they're just going to just hammer down those stats big time, so at least it's a complete crap draw in the late game, or it's like a dead card in your tempo hand, and I think that that's suitable. It doesn't really matter what they do to the stats. It could be like a 4-8, it could be like a 3-10 or something. Something like that would just, you know, kind of put it in line and just drop those win percentages just a little bit to a point where they're a bit more manageable in the metagame. Lastly, I wanted to kind of take a look at the next deck that doesn't really get too affected by these proposed nerfs, and that is like the Zoolock, like the Heal Zoolock. So the source of the strength of that deck and a number of others is actually Keleseth. So Keleseth is a big problem card, but I don't think that Blizzard is willing to nerf Keleseth because it's not too out of control in the wild format, so it doesn't live up to the test of time that well. It's a very powerful card, but how do you change a card like Keleseth when, you know, it has the theme to it? You know, it's Prince Brothers are 3 and 4 mana. This is the 2 mana version. If you have other 2 drops, it's a 2 mana 2/2. Yeah, you know, it's going to be like triggering if they mess with these numbers a little bit. And I think that's something that Blizzard will hold on to. I don't think they're going to nerf Keleseth. So the most oppressive decks that use Keleseth right now, there's Spiteful Druid, which is easy to balance. Later on, they can just include a bad 10-drop. That's fine. And Spiteful Druid, I think, is still manageable and not that unfun to play against. But the other big deck that uses Keleseth is the one that I mentioned, the Zoo/Heal Zoolock. So that deck uses another card that is seeing way too much play than it should, and that card is Happy Ghoul. So what I think they should do to Happy Ghoul is, instead of making it a 3 mana 3/3 with play it for free, I think they should make it a 2 mana 2/2 play it for free. So it's not so much that these Zoolocks can, you know, still get those crazy opening turns. You know, that's fine. It's not going to be too big of a difference, too big of a deal in that field, but it will change the fact that you can no longer play Happy Ghoul in a deck where you can play Keleseth, and that should bump down Zoolock well enough, because you have to keep in mind my proposed nerf like a whole lot of decks. It nerfs the defensive capabilities of control decks. It hammers down the win rates by, you know, maybe 1-2% of a lot of the aggro decks, a lot of the odd aggro decks. So, you know, you don't want to have Zoo at the very top, outclassing every other deck after changes like that. So I think Happy Ghoul, it should be looked at, just because it's a way to nerf Keleseth decks without actually nerfing Keleseth decks. And I think, again, it's pretty sensible. Let me know what you think. Let me know what cards you dislike and hope to get nerfed, the ones that I haven't mentioned today, and your overall thoughts on the matter. Hope you enjoyed my review, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.